Welcome. This podcast is created to explore the many different ways people move through our world, especially when life, health, injury, or circumstance, or the environment that we're in can make everyday experiences easier or harder in different ways. We all experience the world differently at different points in our lives, and by listening to one another, I hope that we can build more awareness, empathy, and understanding. The goal is not to define anyone by a label, but to learn from real experiences so that we can design homes, workplaces, technology, public spaces, services, and communities that work better for more people. Huge welcome today to Ziad, who I have learned so much from over the years. Thank you so much for being here and for being willing to share some of your experiences. The next few minutes are all about you. So please guide the conversation for us. We really appreciate you helping us better understand what a more inclusive world could look like.
Chat. Do you want with regards to myself? So just very quickly in summary, back in 2009, I was just a working dad with two children, just a normal family, 2.4, so to speak, and left in the morning to go to work. I was sighted. I wore glasses as well as contact lenses, believe it or not, as well. Um, and there was no warning signs or anything at all. And after lunch, parking my car back at the depot in the car park, popping into the back into the warehouse where I worked at the time. I remember the day. It was a beautiful summer's day, 7th of July. Sun was shining, and I walked through the depot doors, sliding doors. And as I walked in, through the second set of sliding doors, uh, I lost my vision. I lost my sight, and it was as though somebody had just dropped the curtains. And it took me a few moments, and I assumed, believe it or not, something had just fallen on top of me, or something had just happened in the warehouse where I was. A few moments lapsed, and I realized, oh, it's my vision. Um, so fast track to the hospital, and the consultant, he was very reassuring, Mr. Williams, and said that, hopefully you'll leave with better sight than you came in. I sort of was a little hesitant, but to be honest with you, I wasn't expecting. I was still worried, anxious, to be honest with you. Anyway, I had the operation, and unfortunately, it didn't work. I suppose as maybe as Mr. Williams was anticipating, and I was left with 8% blurred vision in my right eye only. Left eye was very weak at the start anyway, but the good eye where I had vision, no longer. It was 8%, and it was blurred vision as well. So again, fast track. I had to learn to touch type again. I had to learn to use a long white cane. So I had training um, organized by the local social services. And those things gave me the confidence then to literally not wait for help, but to go and find help. So I left the front door and I made my way to the job center. So I wasn't waiting for people to come to me or any kind of agencies. I said, no, I'm going to go to the job center and find myself a job. And again, you never forget certain people in your life at key moments. Elaine Payne, I think her name was. She was the Disability Employment Advisor, DEA, at Cardiff Job Centre, and she organised a work placement for me in Neath, at an organisation there. So having worked there for a couple of months, 3 months or so, it was a job that I absolutely loathed. And the reason being is because I think it was just an overwhelming situation. I really just still didn't know what I was destined for, or what I could do or what I could not do. Um, so it was during that point I had applied for a job at a charity in Cardiff, and I got the job, and I jumped at the opportunity, thinking that, well, it's local to home, and it'll be more, perhaps I'll have a better opportunity of learning to understand what my limitations are. So worked there, and I ended up working for 6 months for two charities. And personal, well, not for so much for personal reasons, but for some bizarre reason, I experienced bullying so to speak, in those instances, in those experiences. And it wasn't for me. I didn't feel as though maybe perhaps I was being bullied. It took third parties, people who were supporting me, point out that's wrong. What's happening to you? So maybe I was a little, um, perhaps, I took it on board. Maybe to expect this, or perhaps I was just conditioned perhaps to overlook these sort of things. But it was for those people who mentioned those things, those instances to me, that that's not right. What's happened to you, or what was said to you. I then decided that it's not for me, and it was whilst convalescing at home. I got an email from, believe it or not, the work placement, a manager there who'd set up the company by himself with another partner, and asked me to come there to see if I'd like a job. So I jumped at the opportunity, and that was almost 13 years ago. I'm now in my 14th year at the Digital Accessibility Centre in Neath. I'm their appointed brand ambassador, as well as a website analyst testing websites for companies, multinational companies, as well as .gov as well. So that is a very summarized fast track from my losing sight to my present day situation and circumstances, my personal life. So my condition is glaucoma. Essentially, I think it's just so as you know, it's one of the only disease that has no cure at the moment. Many other diseases in the eye, RP retina pigmentosa, as well as many others, macular degeneration for the older people, AMD, um, uh, age-related macular degeneration. A lot of these conditions have cures up to a point, and they can give a reasonable quality of vision back to people. Um, Glaucoma is one of those that has not. So basically, the nerve, the optic nerve, has burned, and if you can imagine a cable, and it's got three wires, as they burn out, you're losing your sight. So I think I'm left on with one wire in that cable. Um, but it's been a learning curve for me. It's been a constant learning curve. I'm learning different things, I suppose, every couple of months, maybe every 6 months or whatever, because every time the vision drops, I have to adapt. I have to be flexible. I have to change. I have to manage expectations. And what that does, it pushes me more towards IT, information technology, and the mobile, and garnering as much information as possible that will enable me to be as independent as possible. So today, in real world terms, one of the sites I use, I suppose, Cardiff Council, believe it or not, is a site that I use for bulk collection of items around the home, so cleaning the home and everything else. Um, I like to do these things. It makes me feel, yeah, I'm able to do that. So just to do complete a simple task of booking a collection like that, um, for me, with my situation and circumstances, it's really quite empowering, because to somebody else, it's just perhaps mundane, routine, or whatever else. But for me to be able to do that and organize that, independently, I think, great, it's a good job, excellent. Um, I do embrace technology when I do become aware of it. Now, often when you chat with friends and colleagues, or perhaps even a stranger, sometimes you explain your situational circumstances, they might hint at something. But believe it or not, you'd think that because I'm in the business, or I'm in the area of sight loss or digital inclusion or accessibility, that one should automatically know these things. No, I mean, there are veteran people there who have no sight, who are still learning today. So there are certain apps that I'm introduced to that help, and make life, more manageable. There are some that work for me. There are some that don't. So it's a constant learning curve. Today, now, most recently, I purchased a cane that it has ChatGPT inbuilt, as well as an audio sort of beeping. So what that enables me to do is really navigate around my local area and the city centre more safely. And that's really important. That said, it's still I still rely on the conditions being consistent. So, if there were roadworks or if there's pavement works, I may not be able to spot them, or if there's grey railings in the city centre, I can't see them. It's happened a few times where I have sort of whacked them with my cane, and people have come, or perhaps workmen have spotted me. They've lent an arm. They said, "Can I take your arm and help you around?" Um, Great, thank you very much. So that's a bit sort of unnerving and frustrating, really. Um, what else? I've recently purchased some new glasses, smart glasses. So one of the sort of intentions behind the glasses and the cane was purely and simply a bit of a personal mission, and I've only done it once. It's quite a funny story, but I'm looking to repeat it again, and that's the whole premise behind me buying these smart glasses and the cane as well, is to be able to support my wife with doing the school drop off and pick up with my daughter. She goes to a local school in Cardiff Bay, and it's not that long a walk, is the honest answer. I mean, for many people it may well be, but for me it's 20 minutes. It's quite nothing really. Um, so I was able to drop her off one morning. We went together, and coming back, I managed to come back independently. Now, the only place I did get stuck was when a van was parked across, blocking the pavement. It was on the road and it was parked illegally. Believe it or not, it was a works van. So I went around it, but I didn't go back enough in onto the pavement. So I ended up walking in the middle of the road. You could almost say, almost just near the cars. And a lovely lady popped over and she said, "Oh, I know you. We used to chat on the bus and stuff. Do you know you're walking on the road and you held up all the traffic?" I said, "Oh, God, no, of course not." So she very kindly got me back onto the pavement. And I was none the wiser. God bless, the cars were very patient. Everybody was so patient and so helpful, and I made my way home, and I was happy. I was just over the moon that I was able to take my daughter to school and come back. Um, and that's an experience. I think, which I mentioned to you, it was the National Health Service, and this was with regards to when I have an annual eye consultation, a checkup. And I did mention at the time that whilst many other appointments you get text reminders, the eye clinic did not send reminders via text message. They just didn't have it applied at their end, and there was some kind of technical reason. Well, they have corrected it, and now you do get a text reminder just to let you know that your appointment is due, and if you're unable to attend, please contact this telephone number. And that is absolutely fantastic, because a reminder through the post, it can be so easily overlooked. Sometimes we scoot around the house and we do find mail lying here and there that my daughter, with the best of intentions, a 3-year-old, tries to bring to us, but obviously en route forgets and drops the mail somewhere. So, often when we're tidying up, we do find old mail. So, the NHS has worked. I've had a good experience there now. And, Cardiff City Council, and I talk about these local institutions or organizations because that's where my interaction is. And I access them at a very basic point of view. So I'm not what I would describe as IT literate. And this is important because for many people who are seasoned IT experienced, for them to what I would describe as a work around an issue, an access issue or a problem, it's far more easy because they have far more experience. They know their way around, and for them it's easy. But I think for your average person, it's a constant learning curve.
It's amazing that you've seen those improvements over the last year for government services and NHS. That brings me so much joy to hear that things are continuously getting better. I'm really interested in tech because you've just called yourself. I can't remember the word you used, but you're not very technical. You said, and yet you've
IT, yeah.
IT
Yeah.
literate, yeah, and yet this technology and the way you interact with the world is quite techy. So just wanted to lean into a bit of your experience of how you test and try out new tools or technologies and what your experience is with that.
Okay. So there's two aspects to that. The first aspect is my day job. So I do test websites via a desktop, and that can be any kind of sort of, what the clients stretch from .gov to multinationals to, retailers and anything else. Um, with those kinds of organizations, um, with .gov, they've now created many, many years ago now, because of, I suppose, our intervention, as in we test their websites an awful lot. They've created an accessibility Bible. What that means is that, there's a benchmark expectation of when it comes to design and development, there are certain criteria that has to be met. So it's not a case of where when you get, because the turnover of designers and developers is quite an awful lot within industry. That means then, so with this Bible, what that means is that when somebody does come in, the Bible is given to them, they already know what's expected of them and the criteria that they need to meet as a minimum benchmark. And what that does, it gives them a head start, and it makes sure then that the site or the service that they're designing and developing has a minimum benchmark of accessibility straight away. Had they not had that Bible, then it's what they bring into it and their ideas and their development, and accessibility is probably not even in their mindset. So that's really important, and a lot of, I've noted now, major industry now, and those who want to make a difference, have made a difference, have got that Bible, in place. Another organization, for example, is Lloyd's Bank. They're very passionate about getting it right and ensuring that things are made as accessible as possible. Um, so industry is improving massively, and they're doing a good job. As with regards to the tools as well, so because they've got that accessibility Bible, they are making sure that those tools are made accessible at first point of sort of experience. So rather than just designing something, putting it onto the website, and then waiting for a complaint, because of legislation, and now it's quite widely known now, there is legislation with regards to making sure the websites are accessible. They're a lot more alert and making sure that their websites and the associated resource material and tools are made as accessible as possible. Um, from a personal experience, I tend to, well, I use, and as mentioned just in the conversation, just the relief of being able to connect with you. Um, so that all happened because of the iPhone and the assisted software built in, the voiceover software. So whilst I can't see everything, I definitely can't read it, but obviously with certain gestures of finger swipes and taps, the information fed back to me allows me to make a decision as to how and what I need to do at a given time. So, so it is a constant learning curve. It can be a little frustrating when it doesn't happen first time. You almost want to throw the phone out the window, but then patience, I suppose. Um, there are less apps now or services online that are less uh, accessible today than what they were perhaps previously. And I think that is, again, once again, down to legislation and the worry that they have to make their apps or particularly government services as accessible as possible. That said, there is complacency, and I mentioned the Cardiff Gov, Cardiff Gov, the Cardiff City Council. Whenever you call them now on the phone call, they always say, "Oh, do this on the app. Have you thought about contacting us on the app?" So you do, and historically, I did download the Cardiff Gov app, but because I couldn't access it, I deleted it. So it does show that, it's constant work in progress. Um, and clearly they've got it right in a lot of ways, in the sense whereby sometimes I need to check my bin collection. So I don't need to ask for somebody or make a phone call. I can go onto the app and it tells me, um, as I mentioned about the bulk buy. And so all these things involve some kind of information technology, but at the basic level. And what I meant to say is that this is something that I'm very keen on, is that the the accessibility, the IT should be very simple, very easy to understand. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't make assumptions that just because somebody's using an IT product, um, a website or whatever, that they have suddenly a certain amount of IT knowledge or whatever else. Do not make that assumption. Design and develop for a child, and in that way you'll make sure that it's fully accessible for everybody. Yes, if you have different types of tools and everything else, you know, there's a there's a bit of an expectation. So if you said to me, Ziad, can you use an Excel spreadsheet? No, I can't, is the honest answer. And I don't expect to, because, that's something quite out of my field of sort of, knowledge and sort of, perhaps uh, requirement, and whether I feel I could really access it or design something like that. No. Again, just introducing what I said earlier, it's about managing expectations. I understand what my limitations are up to a point, but also when a company or an organization or an institution provides a service, they make it accessible, there is no greater satisfaction to be able to use that service. And I would use it willingly and regularly and support it wholeheartedly. I don't want to have to hold on a line for 20 minutes to speak to somebody, unless if I have to. I would much rather, use the alternative, jump on the app and be able to do it that way. So yeah, I've intentionally kept myself almost limited to my IT knowledge, because in my day job I want to be able to share my basic experience and share that with the client in order that they can then make their site, as sort of basic, in order that people have an easy understanding. So um yeah, essentially that's it really.
I think it was over 15 years ago we first met. Now, when you tested the Monmouthshire County Council website, at the time I remember you using a lot of Zoom. What are you
Oh my
using?
god.
I know it's giving our age away a little bit, but it was that long ago. Um, what are you using now? Are you still using Zoom?
No. I'm still using Zoom. So basically, for the day job, when I first started at the Digital Accessibility Centre, I was introduced to JAWS, Jobs Access with Speech. Essentially, um, it's a software that sits on the desktop and it just talks to you. So it describes everything on the screen, but in a format. So it will tell you how many links on the page, images and all other different things as well on the page. And for me, because I had a certain level of vision and I could see the screen and colors at the time, it just wasn't visually stimulating for me, and it was becoming really quite monotonous. So a supervisor was observing me and he saw this and he said, "Have you tried Zoom Text?" Zoom Text essentially is a magnification tool that allows a user to zoom in and out of content on screen. And the latter day versions also now provide audible response. So as you scan over a page, it'll also read back to you as well. So once I was introduced to Zoom, I never looked back really. I think I was probably at times 8 magnification or zoom, or maybe 10, I suppose. At the moment, I'm up to about times 16, almost double from where I started. That's because of the deterioration. So I still use Zoom Text as my principal sort of, assistive software to access information on screen on a desktop. But it also talks back to me. Now, where the split was, I would say 70-30, where 70% was visual, I could actually read the content and whatever else, and 30% I'd listen to in the background just to make sure for those who needed to rely on audible response. They could hear it. Today, I think it's probably about it's the reverse. So 70 audible and 30% visual. But the visual is still important because I can still see the screen. I can still see features on the screen. And that makes me feel I still have something. I can still, just to be able to see that little thing as well, that much as well, makes me feel engaged, makes me feel that, yeah, I'm just like a normal person. And once you visited a site and you revisit a site, once you understand the layout and where things are and everything else, you can very quickly jump to to a particular place or point without any issues. So yeah, it is still Zoom text.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, Zed, I mean, one of the things that shocked me that you just said today also is that you've got assistive technology with ChatGPT on it that I never expected that technology would be on that. Like, can you tell me a little bit more about how that works?
So it's so new. It's only been a month old. I'm still, believe it or not, acclimatizing. So essentially, how it works, you've seen a traditional white cane. This
Hmm.
new cane, it's literally just like a standard white cane, but they've built in the technology into the handle, a Chat GPT. So essentially, when you press and hold the Chat GPT button, uh, and you say to it, you give it an instruction much like Siri on an Apple device. Um, Take me to the local coffee shop, and it might give you a few options, and you say, okay, take me to Starbucks or take me to Costa's. And what it does then, because it's connected via Bluetooth obviously to your smartphone and the app is open, it'll then give you directions through a headset or maybe through the glasses, of how to get there. Now, I'm going to confess, I've seen plenty of YouTube videos, I've seen it in action. As yet, I haven't quite used it, is the honest answer. So I've pressed the button, yeah, I've had a go in the sense, but I haven't physically used it.
What's the
I'll,
difference on like that and just using anything on the mobile with headphones to tell you where to go and just a normal cane? Why do you need to have ChatGPT on the cane instead of just using any other app?
Great question. I don't. It came with it. So I had an old cane. It's called a WeWalk cane, is the brand. And it was a really cumbersome thing. It was almost like a Hoover handle. And it stopped working. And it was something that was really needed by me. I realized how insecure I felt without it, because with a traditional cane it's fine, but a traditional cane, it's a case of where you're almost banging into things to work out where you are, or before you hit something. Whereas with the um with the smart cane, it's got a built-in device, sort of parameter device, infrared. So when you get close to a solid object, it'll start vibrating. The new cane now also beeps as well. So as you get closer, it'll beep louder. So what that does, or enables me to do, is that it makes me behave like a normal person. I don't feel vulnerable. It removes that vulnerability. So when I'm walking down the street, rather than zigzagging almost or trying to, because I'm using the vibration or the beeps, I'm walking at quite a quick pace, because I'm already being warned about any kind of sort of small side walls or wall ahead of me or any other kind of objects. Um, with regards to the chat GPT, it came with the cane. It's a subscription sort of service, so you have to pay for it. Um, and I'm going to be honest with you, I've not relied too much on the actual apps of the Google apps, of the Google, the maps. And I'll explain the reason why. Is because I feel as though I've got enough vision to get me into an area, no, without any issues, to get there, because I was born here. So if you ask me can you get to the city centre? I'd say yes, absolutely. Recognition, though, if you said to me, well, now, can you get to Boots? The simple answer is once upon a time, yes, I could. Not anymore, because obviously it was a really good sign, white, boots on a blue background. Not anymore. So the ways around that, believe it or not, I get used to the smell of certain places. So when the doors open of boots, there's this like waft smell comes out. I can smell. I know it's boots. The sound and smell helps me understand places. But the smart glasses I have now, I can stand in front of a shop and say what's in front of me, and it will tell me. So that's my workaround. Maybe one day, perhaps, I'm going to have to force myself into using the Google Maps or the ChatGPT. But for my own selfish reasons, I'm trying to almost keep a distance from it. Only use it, not use it unless I really, really have to or need to. And at the moment, I don't. I feel as though I'm not in. I'm not at that point.
I'm going to pick on another technology now that you said, which is the smart glasses, which obviously are AI operated because they do image recognition, right? And you say, what's in
Yes.
front of me? Oh, there's,
Yes.
like a shelf full of Coca-Cola or whatever it is, right? Do you find that you use them more and more now, and that I mean, those are quite recent, I take it.
They are. I mean, these glasses are literally again just 6 weeks old. Because I was chatting with colleagues at work and everything else, and I'll be honest with you, I got so frustrated with my partner because I'd ask her and she'd say, "I haven't got my glasses, so I can't help you. Where are your glasses? I don't know." And I'm thinking, oh my God, who's the vulnerable person here? So it would drive me up the wall because I've got limited time. I've got so much things to do. So it was just something, a jar in a kitchen, whether it was to jam. Because with empty jars, what do wives do or partners do? They put, once it's empty, they recycle and put something else in there. So, with me anyway, it was a case of where I just got a bit frustrated and I thought I've got to find a workaround. And I looked at these smart glasses and uh, understanding from certain videos and everything else, they seemed quite accessible, easy to use, and that they might do the job that I need them to do. So instead of holding a phone in front of something, I can use both hands to hold up something. I can now read correspondence. So if the letter comes through the mail now, I don't have to wait for somebody. I, I can just say, what is the address on this letter? It will tell me. Open a letter. I can read the communication now. So I'm independent from that perspective. Going into the kitchen, I'm independent now that I can pick up a tin and just ask the glasses, what is this in my hand? So it's small, for me, it's small steps. I don't want to be over ambitious because then, the expectation grows. Yeah, I can do this now, just small steps on a need to know basis, I suppose. Um, but those things, they all matter. They matter an awful lot. If you came to my home and, believe it or not, my home, I was just thinking about it, just chatting the other day with somebody, I can't remember who it was. My home is furnished, and I'm not kidding, from bottom floor to top floor through eBay. And that is not an exaggeration. Apart from one piece of furniture in this loft room, everything was purchased from eBay. And the same goes for many of the things around the rest of the home. So that's because eBay was accessible. I tried Amazon and another platform. It didn't work for me. So eBay made itself accessible. So I was able to then invest with eBay, and it's provided me with a beautiful home, literally. So it just demonstrates that, with a bit of foresight and understanding and awareness, and if developers and designers build in accessibility at the start, um, engage with the right people at the right time, then they can just make their services fully accessible and avoid pitfalls and make a massive difference to people's lives.
And I think something you picked up on there is when it's accessible, it generates brand loyalty as well. Why would you go somewhere else if you found something that works?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So one of the companies, for example, is British Gas. I know for a fact that we've worked with them closely. Um, so, I know behind the scenes how the mechanics work, and their marketing and everything else. So loyalty now isn't, you're not rewarded for loyalty as much as you should be. But coming back to your point, where something does work, you do stick to it. And I do stick to it because I don't want to lose that comfort zone of knowing that I can turn to eBay at a click of my fingers. If my daughter wants something, I can purchase it for her quickly and without any kind of barriers.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us so much.
I genuinely say this with hand on heart. I feel privileged that, when I do venture out and everything else, meeting different people in different types of situations and scenarios and everything else, leaving them with a smile, just allow. Whereas before, and often I do allow people to help me when I don't need help, believe it or not, because it makes them feel good. And I think, why shouldn't I allow them to make them, why not? I don't want to be belligerent and say, oh, no, no, I can do it. No, 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 leave me alone. No, no, no. Yeah, that's nice. Thank you very much. They feel good. They've done their little good deed. I'm on my way. Everyone's happy.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and your experiences so openly. I know these conversations can be personal, and I really appreciate your honest reflections and openness. I know I've learned even more from this conversation, and I hope this helps other beautifully diverse humans think differently and consider how others experience the world around us so that we can all create a more inclusive world.